All right, now we're formally starting. Good morning, everyone here in the crowd, and good morning, everyone on Zoom. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Those who are listening later on during the recording, whenever you're going to hear it, we are thrilled to welcome to our JLI course. The JLI stands for Jewish Learning Institute. It is the largest Jewish adult education curriculum out there, taught in 300 cities around the world. Chances are, if you're traveling somewhere, that somewhere around the corner there might be a JLI class going on at the same time with another rabbi, another instructor. They're not going to have the same jokes that I do, so I apologize. Well, this is just as a welcome. This is very. We took a break of the JLI last 2 years, and I want to thank Hashem for allowing us to come back in person, those who are able to and those who are on Zoom. I think the Zoom has been a blessing for those who either are not here. So we have some people from out of state who are actually tuning in, but be able to expand our reach, learning, our wisdom. Jewish teaching, Jewish education is the key to our survival, as we're going to see today. So what are we doing? What is this class called? Outsmarting Anti-Semitism, right? Outsmarting Anti-Semitism. Now, on those on Zoom, I'm going to share the screen. We're going to have a PowerPoint throughout. You might not see me as much, but you'll see the PowerPoint. I apologize, but I think if you have the setting on your screen, you might not be able to have both. If there's an issue on Zoom, please unmute yourself and let me know. If you have a question, you can do it in the chat or at the end. Those in the crowd, you cannot ask any questions. You don't even have the ability to chat. No. Okay, never mind. So I just, this is the first time we're doing this in person and on Zoom, so forgive me if we have any technical difficulties. For example, in the background, my WhatsApp is bumping. There we go. Now we better. What I just do here. All right. Everyone on Zoom, can you see the screen? And I don't see you now, so I hope you can see it. All right. Everyone here can see it? Yes. Oh, perfect. Sounds like a voice from heaven here. All right. So, anti-Semitism has been around for as long as Jews are around. Exactly. And you know how? And you know when it's going to expire? It's like they say that when the Tsar was assassinated, right? And of course they blamed the Jews. So this government official comes into the shtetl and tells the rabbi, "You heard the Tsar was assassinated?" He says, "Yes." And you know whose fault it is? And the rabbi says, "Yes, the Jews and the milkmen." So this official says, "Why the milkmen?" The rabbi says, "Why the Jews?" Right? Exactly. But I want to make this very clear from the get-go that this class is not about how do we get rid of anti-Semitism, how do we fight anti-Semitism. That is not the focus on this class, although it will be touched upon. But as you know, the class is not called fighting or getting rid of anti-Semitism, but outsmarting anti-Semitism. Why? Because, as I said, and the prophet tells us, we read it yesterday in the Haftorah, that anti-Semitism, hatred against Jacob, will last until the Messiah comes, till Mashiach comes. Now, that doesn't mean we don't have to fight it. We have to fight it. But get rid of it completely ain't going to happen. Rather, we're going to focus as Jews how we have over the last 3,000 years, outsmarted anti. How did we deal with it? How did we not only survive with all those challenges, but thrive as Jews? And I want to take really a big welcome here on Zoom, and it makes me emotional, and I'm going to have to share that. We have a very special Holocaust survivor who joined us today, and in our community, a member of our Chabad, and I'll share with you, and it's right over here. I'd like to welcome Helga Melmit. Helga, can you unmute for a moment? Let me see if I can. Lisa, can you unmute her for a second? Let me spotlight her. Okay. Hello, everyone say good morning. Hello. Good morning.
We have it up on the TV and we have.
That's why there's double sound.
It's a little double challenge, yeah, but if you look at.
Okay, so I'm going to mute you again. Helga grew up in Germany, was taken as a child, ended up in Bergen-Belsen in Auschwitz, an Auschwitz survivor, was on the death march, and is one of my heroes, one of my greatest heroes in our community. She can give the class. I don't have permission even to speak in front of her. So Helga, with all due respect, I'm sorry if I'm going to talk, and I know that you have a lot more to say, what you went through, and God willing, we will have the opportunity to hear directly from Helga. We're planning another community presentation with her. So God bless you, and have much health and long life, Helga. With that, let's go back to Outsmarting Anti-Semitism. All right. Okay, let's talk about, everybody knows, I don't have to share that and teach that anti-Semitism is on the rise, right? Everybody knows that. You'll hear it in the news. We all encountered or have become close to anti-Semitic events. So let's go. This is not a class about statistics, and we're not going to debate its statistics, but just to get go here, you see the chart, how there's a rise of anti-Semitic incidents in the United States, and it's going up and up and up. And it's interesting that during COVID, there was a little bit of a dip, obviously, because they were stuck at home, right? So just lock them all up and everything is fine. But that is the trend.
Why is it getting darker?
Why is it getting darker? I didn't make the chart because the moment before light, the moment before dawn is the darkest times. All right. On a national level, what are the anti-Semitic attacks that come to mind? Anybody that we encountered lately? Yeah. In France, okay.
Yeah.
Locally, on a national level, America.
I think a lot of Jews moving out of France because of it.
A lot of Jews moving out of France. So Europe has a very big uptick, and there's more charts in your book about Europe and England, Australia, Canada, and every country uptick in anti-Semitism. Famously, we had the Pittsburgh attack 3 years ago, and 6 months later, the attack at the Chabad in Poway in California. But again, we are not going to go much into this part. We are going to discuss in the later classes, we're going to deal with how do we deal with anti-Semitism within our own people, right? Or why are young Jews turning, not feeling proud about being Jewish? Why do we have young Jews turning against Israel today? And how does Israel play a fact today there's a big debate. Can I be anti-Israel and still be not anti-Semitic? Like the story now with Ben and Jerry's ice cream. Have you all followed, right? Two Jews, and they're is anti-Semitic. How come we got to such a place? That we'll discuss in lesson 3 of this course. Another figure on your books. If you open your books, if you go to page 8. Everyone have a book? Those on Zoom, I emailed you the PDF. If you can open it up. If not, just listen in. We'll try our best so you can follow. We are going to read a few texts and have some of the graphs also on the screen. They asked, before you even look in the book, I'm going to ask the question to you. They asked in the survey, what is essential to being Jewish? What is essential to being Jewish? I'm going to give you 3 options, and I want you to raise your hands whenever I say that option. What is essential being Jewish? Remembering the Holocaust, caring about Israel, or observing Jewish law? What is the essence? What's the essential of being Jewish? All right, let's do the poll together. If you think it is remembering the Holocaust, raise your hand. as an essential part of being Jewish.
So you can only choose one?
If you have to pick one, I want you to pick one of the three. That's what I said. Again, I'll repeat it, huh?
Repeat the question.
I'll repeat it. Okay, can we like silence all my phones? I'll do my phone as well, because I always have to be the example. Oh, I have to, okay. So I just got a text that the spot view is not working on Zoom. 1 second, I'm sorry about that. Yep, now they. Yeah. We're gonna.
No, because it's a
Okay,
debate.
of course, it's a debate.
We have a debate about the question.
Okay, is this better on Zoom? Give me a thumbs up. Bella, good. Thanks for texting me. And is there a sound problem? You guys can hear me? Good. Awesome. All right, and I'm sorry. In a better setting, if I were just to Zoom, I can interact with you a little bit better. But my apologies. Okay, but it's all good. Now you see me so much. Look how many rabbis you see now.
Now it's like.
Yeah, now you see.
Rabbi infinity.
Okay. Three options. What is essential to being Jewish? Remembering the Holocaust, caring about Israel, observing Jewish law. Don't be afraid to say whatever you feel.
But you can choose only one.
I'm going to choose only one. That would be the top one. Let's say what would be the top one. Okay, how's that? All right. I'm going to start. Remembering the Holocaust. Okay, good. Caring about Israel. Observing Jewish law. All right, we have, I think, huh? Okay. All right.
We have another hand.
We have a good crowd. If you look at the statistics that there was done in America at the Pew Research, 76% was the highest is remembering the Holocaust, as people identify as being Jewish, as that's their essential, that means essential being Jewish. Less than that, was Israel. 45% was caring by Israel. The lowest, 15%, was observing Jewish law. And this crowd, we had the largest percentage. Wonder why? But the rabbis doing a good job.
Yeah.
No, but here's something that we're going to start with in the conversation. That unfortunately, caring about the Holocaust or the Holocaust, remembering the Holocaust, which is so important, also became by default the Jewish identity. And I want you to read, we're going to read now from Professor Deborah Lipstadt. She is a professor in Emory. She is one of the leading authority on anti-Semitism, wrote a book. I think she was just appointed by the White House to be on the chair of fighting anti-Semitism. And she writes as follows, text 1A on page 9. Most Jews will immediately step forward when Jews anywhere are being attacked by anti-Semitism, right? This is, of course, as it should be. What is regrettable, however, is that for some Jews, the fight against anti-Semitism becomes the sum total of their Jewish identity. Recently, a much respected Jewish community leader lamented to me that he regretted not having educated his children about Jewish tradition and culture. He was, however, very proud of the fact that he had embedded within them a total intolerance of anti-Semitism. His kids were prepared to be at the barricades to the battle against this hatred, and many others as well. His comments made me sad. Anti-Semitism has become the drummer to which his family's Jewish identity marches. They know of Jews as object, not subjects. In other words, what is done to Jews becomes far more significant than what Jews do. This is such a powerful line. Again, what is done to Jews becomes far more significant than what Jews do. This well-intentioned Jewish father had deprived his children of a rich and multifaceted legacy. They have been taught to see themselves mainly as perennial victims. This leads to the oppressive control of a one's destiny. It leaves many Jews, including this man's children, aware what to be against, but not what to be for. Again, that last line. Many Jews to what to be against, but not what to be for. Right? And that's as Barry Weiss famous columnist, writes in 1b, the Jewish people were not put on earth to be anti-Semites. We were put on earth to be Jews. Okay, so this is what this class is all about. Like if you came to this class to thinking that we are going to plan how to stop anti-Semitism, sorry, wrong course, wrong course. But, and I'll give you another, look, I'm a rabbi, and what do you expect the rabbi is going to tell you?
Everything's going to be good.
Everything's going to be good, right? What do you expect the rabbi is going to tell you? Say, what will you do about anti-Semitism? Right, what do you expect the rabbi is going to tell you? Anybody? What do you think?
Just be a good Jew.
Let's be a good Jew. Bob, what do you think?
I think follow Jewish law.
Follow Jewish law.
Do the 613 mitzvahs.
Doing the 650 mitzvahs, and we get rid of anti-Semitism. Okay, we didn't say we're getting rid.
Well,
Right?
no, we're going to
Outsmart it.
the world in Mashiach.
And we'll wait until Mashiach. We'll basically be,
We're perfecting the world by doing the mitzvahs.
we're perfecting the world doing mitzvahs. That's the rabbis.
This will, then Mashiach will come.
And then Mashiach will come, everything will be
And
fine.
then we won't have this problem.
And we have no problem. Bob, have you been a rabbi? I'm looking for an assistant. Yes, Simon.
Never again.
To teach never again. Very important. Yes, and I said that right from the get-go. We need to teach never again. However, in this introduction, never again should not become our identity as Jews. It makes us victims. It has not worked. We're 70 years after the Holocaust, and we are obsessed about that in our culture, which we need to be. Don't get me wrong. We need to fight it and never again remember it, teach it. Holocaust education is super, super important. But don't make the mistake that this becomes our identity. And that's why a lot of young kids run away from Judaism, because all they know about Judaism is that we are victims of anti-Semites that hate us. I don't even know what it means to Jew. All I know is that my grandparents were Holocaust survivors who got killed in the Holocaust, and everybody tried to kill us for the last 2,000 years. Yeah, we have Hanukkah, we celebrate Hanukkah because we were survived once in 2,000 years. What does it talk to a Jewish kid? And if we don't know the answer ourselves and don't teach it, then how do our children going to know? All right, you still want to stay in the class? Okay, good. Okay, good. All right, we have a lot to cover. Let's go and talk about first our reaction to anti-Semitism. So when we watch in the news, or anybody locally had anti-Semitic incident? Locally, no? Baruch Hashem, beautiful.
Can I just say something?
Yes.
My daughter-in-law has told her children, who are now early 20s, that they should not wear
Their Star of
their
David.
Star of David or anything like that because
She's
she's
afraid.
afraid for them.
Absolutely, absolutely. And this is what I am dealing with. So personally, I have had anti-Semitic incidents growing up in Europe, for sure. But walking around with a yarmulke and proud Jew, and you get nothing major in our community is blessed. We are very safe here, although we can never close our eyes. We've got to be very careful. And lately we had in Sarasota, synagogues were vandalized. At JCB here was vandalized, and we had some minor incidents here as well. Yes, Neil.
Yeah, I moved here recently from New Jersey. There were a couple of incidents. One at an airport, small airport, where there was graffiti, all over the place, and also there was a congressman who had graffiti painted on his house and so on.
Here or
This was in
New Jersey, right?
Yeah.
And just a few months ago here on the island, some youngsters spray painted swastikas on a Jewish doctor's building. Yes, so it is here. It's no, don't kill yourself. Yes, Shelley.
I had the same experience. This is when I first moved to Tampa. I worked for Houston services downtown. And technology, it's a mixed group. You don't have discrimination against women or blacks or whatever. So I was embraced, and we went out to a team lunch. And, of course, they wanted to say something, we were all getting along, and then the Vietnamese people asked me my horns will come in. Seriously.
Okay.
And I joked and I said, "When my tail comes out."
Okay. All right. So that's it. That's it. So when you have had or you read about it, what's the first thing that comes what is your reaction? What is your first reaction? When you read in the newspaper or you hear in the news that there was a synagogue was attacked, what's your reaction? Huh? Sadness, disgust, outrage, anger,
All the above.
all the above, huh?
Sickness.
Sickness,
Lack of education.
lack of education. Good. How about fear? How about fear? Yes, huh? Some yes, some not. Okay, definitely. Anxiety. Anxiety.
Not that far.
Huh?
Not that far, but.
Well, anxiety and fear is a natural reaction, and especially as Jews, right? Our mothers gave us a lot of dose of guilt and anxiety and fear, right? What's a Jewish mother's telegram, 5-word telegram, which she sends a telegram? Start worrying, details to come, right? That's a Jewish telegram. So worry, anxiety, fear, these are the feelings, the emotions that we typically respond to when we are dealt. And in a sense, that's what anti-Semitism kind of does to many of us. And we need to deal with that, because fear and anxiety actually undermines everything that we're trying to accomplish to survive and to thrive. As we see here in text 2 by the Talmud on page 13. You'll see I'll skip some of the stuff. We don't have enough time to cover everything. Okay. The Talmud says in text 2, it is stated in the book of Ben Sira, do not allow anxiety into your heart, for anxiety has killed the mighty. King Solomon said the same. If there's anxiety in your heart, quash it. And that's where you mentioned that your daughter-in-law or others want to hide their Jewishness, hide their Star of David, right? They put away a yarmulke. I have met people here locally. I went to somebody's house to visit, and I see when I walk in that the mezuzah is no longer on the doorpost. And I said, what happened? Says, we're just afraid. We're afraid to identify as Jews. And that is what we want to address here in the beginning. So, because we all know that the Jewish people are not regular people, right? We're a bunch of crazy people. Right? Huh? Just to say this.
Talk about anxiety and fear.
Yeah.
Our family were subject to the usual stuff, but we were taught never to fear, be proud Jews. And my mother, this is a subject of a whole nother lecture maybe. My mother said, it's a good thing that you have so many Christian friends, so they should know that not all Jews are like New Yorkers.
Okay, but you can say I'm a proud Jew because your mother told you so, right? But how do you teach that to the next generation? It doesn't work anymore just telling them, do it because I told you to do so, right? And we Jews have learned, not only by saying it, by understanding deeply how to be strong and how to be proud. And we want to see what is it? What is this teaching? I want to learn more about this teaching, and we're going to try to do it today. So if you're all proud Jews, great. But why are you proud? What were the tools that not only us, we live in America, we're living pretty comfortable lives. It's not that hard to be a proud Jew living in, there is anti-Semitism, but we can't compare today to pogrom Russia or Holocaust time where people had that pride and were not afraid. We're going to see soon an example. But first of all, and that's kind of the introduction, we need to, as Jews, we need to always, Jewish values, to always see the bigger picture. Never to define your life by some occurrence. People who complain that life is bad, right? Because they are having a hardship making a living. So yes, it's hard. It's hard. Doesn't mean it's hard, but don't define your life, everything, just by just making a living. You have a family, you have your health, you have friends, you have a community. So we always want to look at the bigger picture before we set into anxiety modes, because sometimes, this thing and everything gets out of control. And let's go back to Deborah Lipstadt on page 3, and she writes so beautifully on page 14. The fact, page 14, text 3. The fact that we're here in such a historical anomaly, it makes no sense. So sometimes when I'm asked about anti-Semitism, people will say, well, how can you be optimistic in all this? How can you see the positive? It's such a very situation. And I say, because we should not be here, and the fact that we are here shouldn't be taken for granted. Right? Very powerful again. We are miraculous people. The greatest miracle of time is that the Jewish people are still around. Why are we still around? Why? What's the miracle? How did this happen? Let's look. Let's see that. Let's see further. We go to Maimonides. Maimonides was one of the greatest scholars, Jewish scholars, and a mystic and a legal authority in Jewish law. Lived about 1,000 years ago. So back in the year 1168, the Jews of Yemen were confronted with a terrible pogrom. A fanatical Muslim clerk forced the Jews to convert to Islam, otherwise they would just be slaughtered. And there were Jews who actually converted, and then they convinced the other Jews to convert. And on top of that, there was a Jew who decided he's the Messiah, and that confused everybody else. It was a big balagan, we say. And Maimonides wrote a beautiful letter giving a message to the Jews of Yemen to be strong. Let's read this letter on page 15, text 4. All right. Typically, I'll ask around to read, but I think because of the Zoom, people won't hear if somebody else reads, although I'm not a good reader, and English is my third language. So, God assured our father Jacob early on that, although the nations would enslave his descendants, treat them cruelly and subjugate them, his children would survive and endure, whereas those who enslaved them would eventually disappear. God told him, to Jacob, in Genesis 28:14, your descendants will be like the dust of the earth. Although they are destined to be trampled and downtrodden, as everyone tramples the dust of the earth, they will overcome and triumph in the end. Just as, to continue the analogy, the dust eventually rises over those who trampled upon it when their corpses are buried. So Israel will remain in existence, whereas those who have trodden upon her will not. The Creator similarly assured us through his prophets that we will never be destroyed, that he will never permit our annihilation, and that we will never stray from being a nation devoted to its purpose. Just as it is impossible for God's own existence to be nullified, so it is impossible that we should be destroyed and eliminated from the world. So spoke Malachi, I am God, and I have not changed, and you, the children of Jacob, have not been destroyed. So God makes the promise to Jacob that we will never be destroyed as a promise. We are God's people, we're the eternal people, just like God is eternal, we are eternal. And that's when we say, Am Yisrael Chai. The Jewish people are life, not just their life, but we survive and we will survive. It's the foundation of who we are, and that keeps us also optimistic, and we can persist, and we know that we're going to outlive them. The joke of an anti-Semite walks into a bar, and he sees an Orthodox Jew sitting in the corner, and he can't stand it. He walked in the bar with a Jew. A lot of people there, so he gets up, he says, everyone can have a free drink on me except the Jew. Okay, the Jew is smiling. Everyone gets a drink, everyone's happy. Second time around, he goes, everyone can have a drink except the Jew. And the Jew is smiling. And he's like, why is he smiling? And he's like, gets really angry. Let me get him again. Everybody can get a third round on me, except the Jew. And the Jew is smiling. And he says, why is he smiling? Because he's the owner of the bar.
And that's how it's in life.
That's how it's about. So,
So let that joke alive.
exactly.
Yeah, bring it into our life. We are the owner
Okay.
of the life.
When I said about consider the bigger picture, the full picture. Here's a statistic, and I always felt it. I never read the statistic. I always felt it because people always, they kvetching. We are a nation of kvetchers. No, kvetching means complaining. Oh, it's bad. It's bad. Look at anti-Semitism. It's bad. Yeah, it's bad. But I always and the world is so bad, and everything's bad, and everything is negative. And I always tell people, look around. Yeah, the news, sells us all the bad stuff because that's otherwise they won't sell advertisement. People will watch it. But by and large, we are a lot better. By and large, people are good. And if you want to test it, go around your neighborhood, right? Take your neighbors, take your 10 neighbors, just randomly, and think, who of them is an anti-Semite? Who of them is an evil person? Very few, right? So yes, you hear a lot of the statistics that anti-Semitic incidents are on the rise, but this statistic really proves what I'm saying is that people as individuals having anti-Semitic feelings is dropping drastically. If you look at the I don't want to do this too long, but in page 18, this was the questions they asked people, these stereotypes about Jews, a whole list of stereotypes, right? Do you believe Jews run the world? Do you believe that Jews are more loyal to Israel? Do you believe that Jews have much more power than everybody else? And if you look at the figure, and let me see if I have it on this. I don't have it on the screen. Yeah, I do have it on the screen. Hold on. Here. This figure here, behind me and somewhere, that in 1964, when they started the survey, 29% held stereotypes about Jews, those ideas. But that has drastically declined to 11% in 2019. All right, so there's two truths over here. Rise in anti-Semitic incidents, there's more. These are individuals who do like an attack. There are more of those attacks. But on the other side, rise in anti-Semitic attitudes, there's a decline of an intensity of anti-Semitic attitudes from people to Jews. So that is, again, you have to, before you get all panicky and anxiety, relax. We are a lot better. And for sure, you can't compare today, America 2021, to our Jewish history of, Spanish Inquisition, the medieval times and the Russian pogroms, Holodomor and Holocaust. And the Jews, what they went through then, and what they had, the tools to survive by not panicking, by being strong Jews, not that they have panic maybe, but not to define them as victims, but were able to fight it and overcome and thrive. We can glean ideas from those Jews how we should survive today, and our picture today is a lot better. Let me show you this little clip here. I'm going to go back here. It wasn't part of the course, but somebody shared it with me, and I felt it was good. I'm sorry, I'm floating here. Here. Oops.
I was going to my lesson, as always. By that time, I was wearing already a white band with a Star of David that had to be visible at all times. Now, there were certain streets, certain sides that we were not allowed to walk because the guards, the German guards, the SS, the Wehrmacht, or the Gestapo, whatever happened that they were in this particular time at this particular town at this time happened to go to their quarters. They had their quarters there, not far really from the boundaries that we had. And I was walking from the lesson, and I was elated. And I remember I was running late, and I couldn't wait to share it with my mother. And apparently when I walked energetically, somehow I swung my arms and the Star of David was not visible. Now, I was very hungry at that stage. I was very hungry. I don't remember if I had breakfast, if I had something or not, I just don't remember. But I just know that I saw 2 guards on the other side. I was walking on the right side, and they were coming down, and I didn't realize that the Star of David was not, that it was not visible. But they crossed the street to me, and they both, on both sides, they stood next, sort of, I was in the middle, and they said in German, "Wo ist deine Schandebande?" which meant, "Where is your band of shame?" And without thinking, I said, "Das ist meine Ehrebande." This is my band of really not only pride, but Ehrebande, Ehre means honor. And this is the way it felt to me.
How old were you?
12, close to 12 anyhow, not far from 12. No, I wasn't. I wasn't really. I just was something like this, close, something 11 and a half, something like that, close. That didn't have, that wasn't long after we came to Orkush, just a few months away. And they said Schande, and I said Ehre, Schande, Ehre, Schande, Ehre. And then I was just repeating Ehre, and then I don't know anymore. So then I woke up. I was at their quarters there.
The quarters?
Their quarters. They had their quarters. They must have dragged me there. I didn't feel it. Because I passed out from pain or whatever, call it whatever it is. And you would have thought that they waged the war against the Jewish children, because they kept saying, you say Schande, you say Schande, and we'll give you bread, we'll give your little sister bread, and even a little doll for your little sister, just say Schande. And I just couldn't, I just couldn't say this. And I thought, what can they do to me? I mean, I am not, I love my Jewishness.
Very powerful. So, Shanda means shame. She was proud. She felt it as a badge of honor. And it makes us think twice. Like, really, I'm going to hide my Star of David? Look what they went through, and they were not afraid, or we're proud of it. We should also be proud of it. And I think she said earlier, if we're afraid, if we show fear, that gives further to the anti-Semites, to our enemies. But where do we take the power to be strong? This is what we're going to get to now, right? So let me ask you, before I answer the question with another question, as nice actually, we Jews always answer a question with a question, right? You know why? Why not? So what is the most repeated words in a Torah? What are the most repeated words in a Torah? I'm going to give you 3 options. You tell me. Is it I am the Lord? Is it help the widow and orphan? Or do not fear? All right, let's see. I am the Lord, raise your hands. Help the orphan. Do not fear. Very good, you won the game. Do not fear. The words do not fear are the most repetitive words in the Torah. We all know when we finish our prayer, those who come to Shabbos service, after Aleinu, after Kaddish, you really want to run to the Kiddush, right? My kids sing Al Tira mi pacha pisam, right? What does that mean? Al Tira. Al Tira means don't be afraid. And those words are repeated. Look over here on the screen. We'll go back to the proper here. Al Tira, do not fear, is repeated 44 times in the Torah, 70 times including in the plural, like Al Tira in more in plural, and in other variations 110 times. So the word "do not fear" is obviously one of the most important words and instruction. We Jews have to remember, do not fear. And no better person or prophet or king wrote it better than King David. And we're all familiar with Psalm 23, right? Here on text 6, page 21, Psalm 23, a song of David's. God is my shepherd, I shall not lack. He allows me to lay down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. Even if I walk in the valley of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Those words have given us comfort. And those words have given us the idea that we are never to be afraid. Why not? Because God is with us. If he's like a shepherd. What's a shepherd? A shepherd takes care of his flock. King David was a shepherd himself. He understood what it means to take care. It doesn't mean that you're always going to be on the best pastures. You're always going to be in the best secure places. Even if I walk in the valley of death, I fear no, because you're with me. I'm going to show you a video of Nathan Sharansky. Everybody knows Nathan Sharansky, right? Right? And this is, I don't even have to give introduction. Go here, enjoy this clip.
In January 1948, in the dark hours of the Soviet Union, a child was born in Stelino who was destined to symbolize mighty struggles. A bitter, global struggle between the bald eagle and the brown bear in the throes of their Cold War. A lopsided struggle between terrifying tyranny and human rights, between brutally enforced atheism and the free soul of a believer, between monstrous anti-Semitism and a proud Jew, and between the temptation to collapse and the superhuman will to survive. Nathan Sharansky graduated from Moscow's Physical Technical Institute before joining the underground human rights movement, reclaiming his Jewish heritage and emerging as a foremost dissident and spokesman for human rights. In 1973, Nathan took the calculated risk of applying for an exit visa to Israel. He was denied and rose to the forefront of Jewish refusnik activities.
Well, I was in the middle of the struggle when the situation looked very dangerous, when some of my friends in Helsinki group were already arrested, when new wave of repressions against Jewish activists was clearly prepared. And at this time I received a note from my wife Avital through some American Jewish tourists. And together with this note, a small psalm book. And Avital writes that this psalm book was with me in the last year when I was trying to help you in different places in the world. And I have a feeling that the time has come to send it to you. And I opened the book, and I can't read there anything because I never learned how to read these texts. And also, most of the words I don't know. Many of the words I know, about 1,000 words, mainly of our daily struggle, prison, repressions, demonstrations, but not these words. So I decided I don't have time for these small things when I'm very busy now in organizing demonstrations and press conferences, and almost forgot.
In 1977, he was arrested on false charges of spying for the United States. But prior to the announcement of his verdict, he famously declared, "To the court I have nothing to say. To my wife and the Jewish people I say, next year in Jerusalem." Sentenced to 13 years imprisonment, he spent the next 16 months some 1,600 miles away from Jerusalem, in Moscow's Lefortovo prison, often in solitary confinement and in a special torture cell, before being transferred to a Siberian labor camp.
They bring me the list of things that they confiscated, and there is mentioned this small black book, not in Russian, and I understand that they're talking about this psalm book which was sent to Vitaly. And then I remember this note which you sent. And I demanded they'll give it to me, and it was a long struggle. 3 years after I was arrested, they returned this book to me, together with the telegram from my mother that my father passed away. And it's, of course, it's difficult when, it's always difficult, but when you cannot be with your family. And I decided that the only thing which I can do, I will be reading this psalm book until I understand. And so I'm reading these hundreds of thousands of words where I cannot understand where the sentence begins and ends, and cannot understand more than half of the words. And then simply comparing between different places of these words, I try to find out the connection between them. And it so happened that the first phrase from all these hundreds of thousands of words was a short phrase of 13 very short words, which I understood fully. That is the phrase, Gam ki elech bagay tzalamavet lo ira ra ki ata imadi. It's from the Psalm Kav Gimel, and when you'll go through the valley of shadow of death, you'll fear no evil because you are with me. And that was very powerful. It was very important for me. And each time when they were taking it from me, I was fighting and on hunger strikes, refusing to work, sometimes refusing to eat until they'll bring it to me back.
He resisted and persisted with remarkable courage. His miracle dawned in 1986 when he was released in a prisoner exchange. Leading Israeli officials, including Prime Minister Shimon Peres, welcomed him to Jerusalem.
And even when they already took me from prison and replaced all my clothes, I was lying in the snow refusing to enter the airplane without getting this book back because I felt that all my strength is there. So that was the only piece of property which I took from prison, and all these years it's always with me, and it gives me a lot of strength.
The Hebrew phrases in Sharansky's Petite Black Book were authored 28 centuries earlier by King David, who reigned from the splendid city of which Sharansky dreamed, Jerusalem. It was he who crafted the powerful line of prophetic poetry that lent indestructible hope and undefeatable strength to endless generations of Jews in distress. Even if I must tread through a valley forged by death's own shadow, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. A fountain of eternal confidence generated on behalf of each Jew in every century in the face of the mightiest and most monstrous obstacles. You are not alone. God is with you. Walk with confidence. The Creator of the universe stands guard at your side.
Powerful. Yes, and again, I will be remiss to mention that Yuri and Berta, both similar like Nathan Sharansky, were refuseniks in Russia, and can have their own story, how they fought at being proud Jews and paid a lot of heavy price for it. Huh? Like many others, somberly, like many others. But again, we don't have to. I don't have to teach the course. We have the people here. We have Helga, we have Yuri and Berta. It's amazing. But let's just go on with this idea, and what we're getting to is practical. What does that mean, practical? So altira means don't be afraid. God is with us. You know, God is with us. But that's kind of like a response to my anxiety emotion. If I feel fear and anxiety, I take out Psalm, I think about it, meditate. That's the importance of prayer every day, saying the Psalm every day, Moda Ani, whatever you say in the prayer, Shema, whatever talks to you, is all the same idea that God is always with you. Don't be afraid. And then you can start your day and go through all the challenges. But that's more taking care of our emotions, our emotional reaction. How about in action, in practical application? What I do, how do I deal with this? And with this, we need to go to the story of Purim. the story of Queen Esther. But raise your hands. Everybody know the story of Queen Esther in the Purim? Anybody don't know the story? Huh? You don't know the story? You do know. Okay, we all know the story. What happened by the story of Purim? Which happened approximately 2,500 years ago, between the first temple and the second temple. Jews were exiled into Persia, Babylonia, Persia, Iraq, Iran area, and the king at the time was King Ahasuerus, who was the leader of the world, ruled the whole world basically. And you all know the story. Haman comes around, convinces the king to put a decree to kill all the Jews in one day, and also in the beginning of the story, the king has killed his own queen, Vashti, and then he needs a new queen, and he picks the most beautiful girl, and she doesn't tell him that she's Jewish. It was Esther, who was the niece of Mordechai, the Jewish leader at the time, and now when the decree comes out, Mordechai turns to Esther, to his niece, who's the queen, and says, now is your time to address the king. You know, we have the best person in the White House, right? The best person in the palace. We have the queen on our side. Got to do your diplomatic, diplomatic ways. What does she say? Look over here. What does she tell her uncle, the leader of the Jews? And I want you to, this is so important. The story of Esther, we're going to use as one of our backdrop for this course. So we are going to text 10 on page 25. Esther dictates a message to be sent back to Mordechai. Go and assemble all the Jews who live in Shushan, which was the capital. Let them fast on my behalf. Let them neither eat nor drink for 3 days, night and day. I and my maidens will fast likewise, and then I shall go to the king. Although it is contrary to the law, meaning she cannot go to the king uninvited. This was an interesting king. He didn't live, they lived in different quarters. And if you just go uninvited, and if I am to perish, I shall perish. Meaning the king could just kill me for just barging into his palace. Mordechai went ahead and implemented all that Esther has commanded him. So what does Esther say? Before I go, I want everyone to pray and fast, not for 1 day like Yom Kippur, 3 days, right? You ever look yourself in the mirror after Yom Kippur, how you look like, right? Fasting 24 hours, times 3. And not only the people should do it, the Jewish people, Esther says, I myself will do the same. Why did King Ahasuerus love Esther? For her beauty, right? And she is endangering herself by doing the contrary, by going and fasting for 3 days. And then and on the third day, Esther donned her royal apparel and stood in the inner court of the king's palace. Why in the world would she do that? Why would she such a thing? Why would she go and fast?
She had no fear.
Huh? She had no fear, just walk into the palace. Why would she go and fast for 3 days and pray for 3 days?
So he'll ask her why.
Huh?
So he'll ask
So
her
ask
why.
her why, yeah? Ask her why. So what happened to my queen? Because she understood something that Jews always understood, that salvation and the blessings ultimately come from Hashem. And before we try to do our part, we need to first connect to the source and connect to God. When we say, I'm not afraid because God is with me, that is not just a slogan, but is living by it, by remembering that God is in control. So the million-dollar question is, right, if God is in control, so what do I have to do? Let God do everything. If God is in control, I'll sit on my couch and let God give me everything I need, right? As the expression is, God helps those who help themselves, right? So obviously I have to do something. So who is actually bringing the result? If I'm sitting on the couch and say, God, do whatever you have to do because you're in charge, we know that God doesn't do anything then. You have to do something as well. So if I am doing my part, then what is God's role in it? Example, making a living, right? Making a living. Many people say, oh, God is in charge. God is in charge. I don't have to go out and work. They forget that the same commandment says that on the seventh day you shall rest. It says 6 days you shall work. God gave us a mitzvah to work 6 days, right? Me going to work, is it my money that I'm earning? Or am I becoming, is it God making me earn the money? So you can say, what does God have to do? I want to work, I work hard, God has nothing to do with it. But what Esther is teaching us, that is a partnership. There's a partnership between man and God. God says, you do your part, but allow me inside, because the origin and the source of the blessing comes from me. Esther understood the same idea. She said, I'm going to go into the palace and talk to Achashverosh, but first I need to make sure that God is also part of this adventure. And that's why Esther gets such a special attention. So, in the times of the desert, when the Jews were in the desert, how did they survive? Anybody? How did they survive?
They're connected to God.
How did they have food?
Manna.
From heaven, right? Every day, did they have to go to work? No. Every day they wake up and there's manna from heaven. They had everything. So they lived a miraculous life. When they came to Israel, by the way, that's why the Jews didn't want to go to Israel. The story that Jews were wanted for 40 years, they didn't want to go to Israel. Why? Because they were living on a welfare state. They had a great life. There was nothing, they had no worries. God was taking care of them from A to Z. When they went into Israel, the manna stopped. And God says, you come to Israel, stop plowing the field, stop working the fields, planting, and I will bless the land if you do your part. So again, where is God's involvement in our day-to-day life post-desert? He's giving us the strength. Okay, he's giving us the strength. And more than he's giving us the strength, he's actually giving us all the blessings. But in order for the blessing to manifest, we need to create the vessel to receive the blessing. The vessel is to do everything in physically possible under the conditions that is permitted according to Torah, right? To work, not to work on Shabbos, to work during the week, to be honest, not to cheat. That creates the vessel for God's blessing to flow, because God wants a partnership. God doesn't want us to give us everything and we like freebies. God craved, when he created us, to be partnered. That's why we are created in God's image. God gave us godly powers. And what is a partner? A partner means you allow the partner to be involved. So that's why Esther is the example that we use, especially in the story of Purim, because it wasn't an open miracle. If somebody reads the story, you can say, there's no miracle here. Esther happened to be the right person at the right place in the right time. And that's why we mask, we dress up on Purim, because we unmask that God is really behind the mask. God is behind everything. The fact that Esther happened to be there, the fact that Esther was successful was only because she connected to God, and God allowed it to happen in the laws of nature, within the natural sequence. Why am I telling you all this? Because when we say outsmarting anti-Semitism, when we talk about what gives us the power to be the eternal people, that we can survive and not survive, but also thrive, is the fact that we have God on our side. The fact that we connect with Hashem. The fact that I equally take care of protecting myself from the anti-Semites by hiring security guards, by making sure I lock the doors, by making sure I have, upgrade to make sure that we are safe, by lobbying in Congress and make sure that we are fighting anti-Semitism. But on the same hand, and in a sense, even not only as important, but even more important, is to make sure that we also connect to the source of our blessing, which is God. when I say I'm not afraid because God is with me, it's not just only about my anxiety and my fears, but it's also the actual catalyst for my protection to happen. And you know where we do that at most? By placing a mezuzah on your door, right? Why do we put a mezuzah on our door? It's a protection, right? What type of protection? I mean, I have people coming by and say, wow, that's an interesting security system. I've never seen that, huh? Right? Is there a camera inside? What is that? But if you put the mezuzah up, there's a joke of a rabbi and a priest. They go out once a week for lunch, and the priest says to the rabbi, I have so many thieves breaking into my house. I don't know what to do. The rabbi says, we Jews put up mezuzahs. Put up mezuzah. I'll give you a mezuzah, and you'll be protected. All right, great. The priest puts up mezuzah on his door. Next week he comes back. The rabbi says, so how's it going? He says, well, it got a lot worse. The thieves stopped coming, but it got a lot worse. I says, what? I have a lot of rabbis coming fundraising from me. Right? So when the idea, the harmony, the combination, that's really what it is, of having a lock on the door and having the mezuzah on your door, then you have a true protection. But by the way, if you think that the protection comes from the lock, you're also making a mistake, because we Jews have not survived because the sequence of natural order of the world. Remember, it makes no sense we're around today. There were no locks in place for us to survive. It was God's protection that we are still around today. The locks are the vehicle how we infuse God's protection. So the mezuzah is so critical. So when I have the lock on the door, that the lock actually shall be blessed by the mezuzah, by God's infusion in the blessing. So that's really the idea here. All right, let's wrap up over here the class. What I want to do, I'm going to skip bunches here. And this is really the line here on the screen. God helps those who make it appear as though they are helping themselves. Okay? Because really what God is doing is he's hiding his presence. God is not revealed, but he's hiding his presence where? In the laws of nature, in the people. I need to create the vehicle that where God can say, you're helping yourself, I'm gonna appear right there. And that's the miraculous partnership that we have with Hashem. The lock over here on the screen creates space for God's protection, but the mezuzah secures God's protection. And that's not only about mezuzah, it's in every aspect of our lives. And that's where we talk about connecting to the source. If it's by prayer, if it's by putting on tefillin, if it's by strengthening our belief and our trust in Hashem. And where is the primary focus? At the times of Purim, Mordechai, when he saw that the king became very powerful, and the first thing the king did before Haman came around, he made a big party where he invited everybody to the party. So the Jews got together and says, if the non-Jewish king makes a party and he invites us, we got to go. Is it kosher? Who cares? We got to go. If it's not kosher, Mordechai says. No, but we have to go because, our survival depends on our lobbying with the king. And Mordechai says, our survival is depending on God. If it's kosher to go, you can go. If it's not kosher to go, it's not your place to go. And after that, even Achashverosh says, okay, I'll give kosher food. Mordechai warned them, says, don't be fooled to think that your salvation comes from the king. Your salvation does not come from the king. And that's the point of Esther. Esther understood that. So even though she didn't just fast and pray to God, she still went and she risked her life to go to the king. Remember that part, that's important. But she understood by me going, I need to have the primary idea is my connection to Hashem. It's interesting when I said, don't be afraid, after Haman came out with his decree to kill the Jews, the first thing Mordechai did, he went to the Jewish school and he called out the kids and told the kids, tell me a verse, just quote me a verse from Torah. Because that was kind of a prophecy. When kids speak sometimes, prophecy goes through their mouth. And Mordechai wants to know, what is the message from Hashem that now we're about to face these Hamans who want to kill us? What did the kid say? Altira mipachapis, the verse. So we say after davening, don't be afraid of sudden terror. Don't be afraid. You understood? That's the message. Okay, so don't here, just to recap today's class, don't brought in the negative, reduce the panic. If you are living a life of anxiety and panic, you're losing the sight of everything. Trust in God, He's our shepherd, and take appropriate action, meaning implement not just this telling to trust in God, but live by it. And appropriate action means now go and do what you have to do in the world. Go to work, go lobby Congress, do what you have to do, but with the foundation that you have your Hashem on your side. So what can we do to be more Esther-like? We can give tzedakah before we go to work or we go into a business. You give tzedakah, you tell Hashem, I know the money's coming from you. I'm already now telling you that I trust, I want your blessing because this is a partnership. Study Torah and pray. And with this, I'm going to conclude with a
lesson 1
recap. I have a video. I said 1 hour, it's an hour, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. I have a video of something happened in 1990. Before I go to the video, you all know me that I am a strong follower of the Rebbe. Rebbe was our Mordechai of our generation who directed us in how to be Jews. In 1953, if you don't believe the story, you can actually hear the story. There's a recording of it. 1953 on Purim. Anybody know what happened on Purim 1953? Stalin died, right? Stalin died. Stalin died. Now, for a few days, nobody knew that he died, right? They were holding it quiet. He died, but later on they found out he died the night of Purim, 1953. In New York, Rebbe has a gathering for Purim, and he shares, and it's recorded, and he shares there that the Jews in Russia there was an election, and Jews were allowed to vote. So the Rebbe told all the Hasidim that they have to go to vote. Hasidim never knew how to vote. They never went. But if the Rebbe says, Tanzen ala Hasidim, right? You do what the Rebbe says. So they would go and they would put on their clothes, their Shabbos clothes, because the Rebbe said, and go into the voting booth. And then they calculated who's the winner, and whoever won, and everybody goes and says, "Hoorah, hoorah, he won." Now the Hasidim, not understanding Russian so well, hoorah in Hebrew, if you take the word hoorah, in Hebrew it has two words, hoorah. Ra is bad. Hoorah, he is bad. And they all go, hoorah, hoorah, he is bad, he's bad. And that had an effect on this leader at the time that was a real anti-Semite, that kind of was like almost cursing him out. And the Rebbe was Purim, 1953. And the Rebbe says that we Jews get together for a celebration. We have the power to connect to Hashem like no other way. And I want everyone to make a l'chaim, that the Jews in Russia are suffering from Stalin. And we shall all now lift our l'chaim and shout, hoorah, hoorah, he is bad, he is bad. All the Chassidim were like looking at the Rebbe like, what's going on here? Okay, it's Purim. And only later they found out that literally the same time is when he died. But here's, I'll show you another clip. This was in 1990. Should have it. And I'm going to. Everyone on Zoom still with me? Yeah. Okay. Everyone had an extra hour sleep, so the only problem is when extra hours sleep, then my children still wake up at the same time. It doesn't help. Okay, so let's watch this.
an excerpt from the Jewish educational media film Faithful and Fortified, Volume 3, Israel's Government Leaders. Rabbi Benjamin Klein is a member of the Rebbe's Secretariat.
Ich bin für mich zwei Säge, kalt das Telefon, ich gebe ihm ein Telefon, kalt das, ich will reden mit mir. Hat die kalt herumstehen. Also, das ist ja, was sie, als sie wissen, kommen eine Idee, als der Aschaf geht bombardieren an einer Sachplatz, nicht in dem Platz. Aber man weiß, den Platz können sie aber, also in der Welt, in der Sache in der Welt. Wetter abwachen. Ich gehe gewoon klap naar hebben stieren, daar heb ik me geöffnet. En dan zeggen die mensen, daar heb ik toch niet meer wissen, die gewoon niet. Ich habe gesagt, mensen, ja, naar bed niet. Ze komen bij mij, ik kan het niet wissen, ik kan het wel in office niet zijn, ze zeggen niet dat ik in een office. En dan ga ik rein, komt ze mij, daar hebben ze geweest aan mijn toog, en daar hebben het zich uitgedreid nog meer, en dan gaan we reden wegen de mij.
So gekommen eine Idee, als Schofar Minchaner, als Oschof hat auch gegeben bei Rohr zu der Machloki sein, der Bechol Mokim Shuhu, als Hoyel Lissi, soll sich schäppen mit Zähne Israel und schäppen sich, wie bei sie kommt, der schäppen sich, hat das Ayini verbunden mit Guf, Bechule, wilde Haare, Bedover haben Pursam, und beflatlich auf Tiftach Peh, Bemeli doch verstandig, aber darf mächtig sein. Israel ein Kirche mehr mit Peh, wenn geht zu Kolonien verbunden mit Peh, unheimlich. Von dem da gesoffen, dem da Teil, was Mordus Kide. Doch verstandig, dass Ekel mit Kore, Kolonien Bilderi zu ihm, wie andere haben gesehen, der Happe hat durch Rusel Zukunft, Kissen Noel, wie nach Hescher, und Kiese nach Hochma Mina Sichlos.
Ja, dann gibt es zu gucken, einer guckt auf ihn. Das ist eine private Sache, darauf wollte ich mal sagen, die zwei Schatzri gekommen, ja, aber sie hat das gewonnen. Da habe ich gehört, und da ging es raus. In New York Times nicht wenn von dem Reben. New York Times haben sich gewonnen in News, weil in der Zeit nicht wussten, die News, das hat gewonnen in News. Also sie gewinnen als das Sache. Als in New York Times gestanden am Morgen, als mit Gewalt bombardieren, weißt du, dass es gewonnen ist. Aber nicht weil der Rebbe, nicht der gestern.
Der Pfarrer sagt, Massim, aber die Balda Chabad sich nicht mehr in Jahren von Tinies. Aber viele, wenn das verbunden ist mit der Halacha, mit der Minig Vechulu, verarbeiten das mit Doko-Präg, und viele das echt kommen und trachten gut, wird sein gut. Aber du soll nicht nigerer werden, als wir schon. In Kamus als Docker, ich nicht in Neches als Docker. Und nicht mäßig sein. In dem Juche, bei Kescher Lose, haben wir so der Schovi, der Wert von Gimel Sudis. Und ich bin der Geiz, Kolpon, sagen Gimel, mis meine Tele von ihm sie mir das Israel. Und Martin drauf Kehl sein oder Messi sein, die müssen wir hacheln bei Asium, was verändert sich, und das ist der Chesem, wenn Kehl schon mit Halle Jütke, Halle Luke, weil der sehr, Kol Chad wird sich Mischai sein, was nachher kommt Tonnenduf in der Richtung und in dem Ruach, und Malachas kam, dass er sich Kehlen in sich hat mehr sein. Anders im Noschen Vitar, was gefunden sich bis wie Wosse. Da hab ich nicht Mafchi sein sehen, aber bejachet im See, sehen, als soll Messi sein, mit Telo, mit Svese, mit Techalchow und mit ihr Bitochen Amiti.
Order the film today
at gemstore.com.
Okay, so just to recap the end of the class with the, we have here the, in case someone missed something, here we go. Okay, enjoy this recap here.
Lesson 1. The Eternal People. 1. Worrying creates dejection and ineptitude. To address an issue effectively, we need to reduce the anxiety associated with it. 2. The Jewish people are an eternal people. History has shown that despite the pain and suffering that we have endured, the Jews and Judaism always survive and thrive. Recognizing this is an important step toward feeling optimistic about our people and about our future. 3. To be realistic means to not lose sight of the fact that we are living in one of the best eras for Jews, and that we should be thankful for that. For the first time in millennia, the vast majority of Jews do not live under regimes that persecute Jews. And in some countries, while individual acts of anti-Semitism have risen, the data also show that fewer people overall harbor anti-Semitic sentiments than previously. 4. The ultimate Jewish answer to anxiety is bitachon. We are empowered to ingrain in our minds a trusting attitude, feeling that God is going to take care of us and that He will be with us even when we pass through dark times. In fact, placing our trust in God triggers the opening of channels for additional revealed goodness. 5. The Torah teaches us that the success of any of our endeavors is God's providence and blessing. Nothing in our lives is a mere product of nature. God instructs us, however, to create a garment through which His blessings can operate in disguise. Hence, we must take all the natural steps, whether to earn a livelihood or to protect ourselves from anti-Semites. But the blessing is entirely God's doing. 6. Accordingly, our efforts to engage in the logical methods of protecting ourselves are inseparable from our efforts to secure God's protection. In the Purim story, Queen Esther recognized this, and she therefore prioritized being worthy of God's protection over being attractive to Achashverosh.
Right, in 1956, there was the Olympics in Moscow. Anybody was there? Huh? Were you there? You were there? You remember it? So, 1956, 1950.
1980 it was Olympic.
Not 56. Okay, I was reading 56. Maybe there was both.
No.
In any ways, the story is that there was the first time an Israeli delegation came to Russia, and the stadium was packed with 40,000 Russian Jews. First time being together as Jews. It felt like the Yom Kippur, or they were so proud to be hearing the Israeli national anthem. And then the Israeli Olympic team stayed over Shabbos, and everybody came to shul. Although typically it was dangerous to go to shul, but the packs of Moscow were packed. And the Israeli delegation, they're being called up to the Torah. And the Israeli athlete comes up, is called to the Torah, and they open up the Torah, and he has no idea what to do. He has no idea what to do. And because in Israel, they don't teach in the public system, in the public schools, about Torah. They teach Hebrew, but they didn't teach them how, many of them don't even have a bar mitzvah. That changed. That's why I thought it was earlier, because a minister was there from Israel, and he implemented Jewish studies in their public school system.
It was festival.
Maybe a festival, but the point was he was so taken aback that sometimes you can be a Jewish but not know what it means to be a Jew. Anyways, this and here I also want to plug in that we're going to go to Israel as a group in March. We're taking a tour to Israel, March 20th, and if you want to join, let me know, and we're going to be there for 9 days. It was a pleasure starting this class. Next week, we'll deal with the question, why do you hate us? Big debate, why do they hate us? And there's so many different philosophies and comments, right? Yes, and I would love everyone to come back to the class. If you want to continue, you can get a book, the full book. You can sign up later on. Let me know so we can continue this journey. Wishing you all a wonderful day. Anybody on Zoom want to share something or questions?
Thank you.
Nobody? Everyone on Zoom? Good?
Thank you. It was amazing. Thank you.
You're very welcome. If you, I'm gonna stop it. All right, goodbye, everyone.